Hello, everyone. This week, what I wanted to do is go over how you can create a pose and then create it in Stable Diffusion. So, what we're looking at here is DAZ Studio. I'm going to use that to do the creation. You go into Figures and you pick your starter. Then you go into Figures again, and you can grab some of the existing ones like Laura or Cat or Ty, but to get the best out of what you're going to want, it's better if you just go with a simple model that has no hair, no nothing. We're going to use her as our starting point. Okay. Now, pay attention to your tools. If you've never used DAZ before, you've got these up here that allow you to change your orientation. All right, so now you can lock her in. You've got other tools up here for rotation and things. We're not going to play with them too much. You can see what happens if you drag. You can move the entire body. But if you grab down the bottom, you can pull like the arms down to the side. You can, of course, move the body by playing with the head. And you can rotate the hands and things. Again, I'm not going to do a tutorial on how to get everything to move, but play around, go in here. There's some online web tools that can do this as well. And what you're going to do is get your pose the way you want it. And once you've got it, then we'll go into Stable Diffusion, and that's where we'll go to. So rather than using Comfy UI for this particular one, we're going to use Stable Diffusion. I think it makes it a little easier to read everything. So this is the pose that I started with. It turned it into this wireframe, and this is what I got for the result. Now we're starting at the end because if you've used Stable Diffusion, this UI can take a while to process. A couple things to keep in mind. Your height and your width. Now, when you create your image in DAZ 3D, you can just do a screen capture of it. You don't need anything very sophisticated in order to use this tool. But pay attention to what the dimensions are on the tool. It will matter when you try to render it here. And the reason that is it's going to use the pose as is, the entire body. And I'll show you that in a minute. But when it uses that entire pose, it's going to have the same proportions to it that it did originally. In order for it to get the entire body in, you're going to need to have the pose. Now there's the wireframe. And that's what it ended up with. Now, you might say that's an odd pose. It is. I wanted to put a pose that there was no way you would think that the generative AI did it on its own. Okay, so she's holding her hands. Looks like she's leaning against a wall. I did not put the wall in. Let's start off with the prompt here. Just a 20-year-old woman wearing shorts, a tank top, and sneakers. That was the prompt, other than the other things to get rid of the negative qualities that it could come up with. So how did we get here? Well, down here is this control net. And what we're going to do is I'm going to close this all out so that we can start over with a new image. It's a little X here. Okay. So when this comes up, enable will be off. This will be set to control type all. This is what you're going to see down here. You put your text in up at the top for your positive and negative prompts, and this was an Epic Photogasm one that I used. Down here, all you have to do is drag that image. Now, I just took a screen capture directly from the UI for DAZ 3D. And there it is. That's all there is to it. If you look at the pose and the way it came out, it's a good match. The foot's raised a little bit here. The hands are in the right spot. And again, this is used by manipulating your three-dimensional object. The reason I recommend not using one with any hair or clothing or anything else is it makes it much easier for the preprocessor, which you'll see in a sec, to get it right because it doesn't have anything else around to distract it. Now, we're going to use open pose. What I've found works best for me, we've got all these preprocessors down here, is not the open pose full, but the DW open pose full. Now, let's take a quick look at what some of the other ones do. So if you just did hand, for example, and clicked on it to run, in theory, it's just going to care about the hands. And it did kind of do that. So click it to edit so you can see it a little better. Hopefully, if it'll come up. All right, doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. As you can see in the top here, you've got just these lines. And those lines are there to show you where the face would be. I'm going to turn on enable here before I forget again. Interface is just tons of fun right now. Okay. In any event, these different ones do different things. You can do face only, full. Now, full is going to generate the entire body wireframe that we saw over here. Now, I'll pull it up over here because this will be much easier to see. It's larger. Notice the dots around here. It is mapping out not only the face, the eyes, the mouth, the expression that you have. So you may have to play with that in a bit. We'll see. It wireframes out and look at the hands. The fingers are all there. So one thing you shouldn't get using this technique are bad looking hands because the hands are all drawn out. Now, if we come down here, there we go. You'll notice you've got balanced. My prompt is more important, or control net is more important. So by using it as balanced, you can change those facial expressions within the prompt itself. Now, you'll notice that the fingers do look a little weird, but overall it came out pretty good. Now, if I were doing this as a pose, I would not, if I were making a pose up to show to somebody, I would not put their fingers together like that. Again, this is a very awkward pose done intentionally to show you guys that you can do the pose without worrying about how Stable Diffusion is going to handle it within the prompt. And there's nothing else set here. I didn't swap out the faces. I didn't try to fix the face. I just let it go with what it had to just get the pose up. But using these two tools or using Open Pose online, you can create the look that you want. Turn it into a wireframe that will then become part of this design that you get for how the person looks. So you could put the person in a chair. Now, again, if you're using something like DAZ 3D, Open Pose, I think, has some of this as well. You could actually put a chair in there, put the person on the chair so it looks like it's a natural thing, and then remove the chair. All right. You're unlike a normal model that you have, the person's not going to fall. It's just a 3D rendering. And then you can play around. As you saw me turn the body, you can play around with different angles. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do, creating poses, looking at it from different angles. You can even use a tool like DAZ 3D to come up with ideas of how you might want to do a shoot, to come up with new ideas for yourself on how you want to do posing. And then once you've got it, you can actually render it in here to see what that pose would look like. You could get as detailed as you want in the prompt, as you know. So you could change that prompt out and change everything about that look and generate it with a pose that you've put in place to see if you like that particular pose. Now, if you're dealing with a client, you can use this tool to come up with ideas on what to do for that client's photo shoot, something specific to them. You can then create images for them to see so they can see what you're thinking of for the photo shoot. And because we've done this in such a way that there's no hair or anything in here, it also won't conflict with the prompt. All right, so when it's down here and it says balanced, it has no hair to work with. So it's going to go with just the prompt. So what that'll do is it allows you to be creative in what you've got and just use this very bare bones model, this open pose model that's going to create this wireframe. It allows you to be very bare bones on what you need to create. It allows you to see the structure a little bit better, and it allows you to then create a model that represents what that would look like in reality. So, as a photographer, you can use the tools to come up with new ideas. You can use them to come up with photo guide or posing guides for a client specific to that particular photo shoot that you're going to do. Or you could also do this in a posing guide. If you wanted to make your client more comfortable, for example, in posing, and you wanted to give them some ideas, you could put together a very simple guide that just has different poses in it and allow them to take a look and see what they like in the poses that are there. Again, this is all designed to do two things. One, using these kind of tools can help you get out of a creative rut, but it can also be used to help you communicate your ideas with your client and for your client to communicate what they like and what they don't like back to you. So that's what I've got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you guys all next week.